Hey, so today I'm back with another how-to video. Wanted to show you how to make a little skull cap beanie. This is really a great little project if you're trying to use up some scraps, and pretty simple if you're new to sewing. So you can see here that I've already cut out these pieces, cut out the band that goes around your ears and the little pieces that go up on the top part of the hat. This band, I typically fold it in half before I cut it, and really just to get those grids evenly lined up with this particular fabric. The band ends up being 10.5 inches by 3 inches folded. These top panels, they're going to be a little bit more freeform. Mine ended up being 5.5 inches each wide and then 6 inches tall. You can adjust that height width depending on the size of your head. If you've got a taller head, make it slightly taller. You'll be surprised, I think, by how much a small adjustment will make on a hat. One more thing to note, when I'm making hats, I try to use the stretchy side going around your head. Just kind of play with the fabric a bit and before actually cutting out each of the different pieces. So here you can see getting ready to start sewing. Stitch 2 of them together and then the other 2 together. And with the serger, rather than having to finish off the ends, I'll stitch those 2 completed stitched together panels to each other. And that basically just saves you the extra step of finishing off the ends with the sewing machine. I'll fold the seams here when they join together in the middle. I'll fold each of those already sewed seams kind of opposite each other, and that leaves just like a smoother finish at the top. Rather than, if they both fold the same way, it's fine, not a huge deal, but it basically just makes for a smoother finished top, no bunching in there. By stitching it over that way, you really only have unfinished ends at the bottom, which won't be a big deal when you go to stitch that actual headband on. So here you can see I've used one headband piece, just folded in half, stitched with the top face facing out. And so when that's done and folded over, you've got, soft side facing the outside, but it's also what's against your head. And with this particular fabric, this is a lightweight power grid bipolar tech. That means that it will actually pull moisture off your head with those little fleece grids actually touching it. So here you can see I've taken that headband piece, fold it in half, and find the center of it. You're going to take that center piece, you're going to pin it right into one of the seam ends of your upper panels. And then the other seam is going to line up with the, just the opposite seam on those top panels. And that's a good starting point. And, the dimensions that I have for the headband are, obviously they need to match up with, the top panels, the overall length. So just make sure, if you're scaling up your headband size because you've got a big head or inverted, just remember that you've got to adjust that on those top panel sizes. So here with that pin in place in the middle, I just kind of use both of my hands to maintain an even tension all the way around the hat. If your measurements are just kind of off and your top of the hat panels are you know, just not the right size. It might take some tweaking to adjust that in your own pattern, but yeah, it should come out pretty smooth. There shouldn't be like a lot more fabric on one side or the other here. I like to have that long seam running front to back on your head. I just think it fits a little bit nicer. These hats end up being really great projects for if you have a lot of extra little scraps. Because those top head panels are so small, you can really use up a lot of, you know, just random scraps here around the studio. The headband panel, yeah, like I have it folded over, and that requires a bigger scrap or a bigger piece of fabric, and they can be a little bit tougher to find. You can definitely split it in half and just serge that extra seam, so that way there's a seam going, you know, all the way around along your forehead, and, you know, maybe the inside of the panel, the headband panel, is a different color than the outside, or, you know, you want to have the face on the outside being that smoother face, or, you know, totally depends on what your fabric is, but there's a lot of options to do with this. Here you can see I'm a big fan of that 3-step top stitch, and I'm just going all the way around. And what that's going to do is, you know, it both looks kind of nice, and it also just locks in those seams where the serger came out, and yeah, you know, just does a locking stitch on there. So you can definitely use a variety of different stitches going around, but make sure it does some kind of zigzag or some kind of stretch stitch. If you just do a straight stitch around, what's going to happen is the first time you go to put the hat on your head, it's going to stretch to get on there if it's built, you know, to the correct sizing, and those straight stitches are just going to pull right out. So make sure you do something that can withstand the amount of stretch for your hat. All important part of the hat, got to get the logo on. But really this is a very simple project. You know, you can see I finished it here in a couple minutes. I typically make hats when I'm trying to use up scraps. This particular hat is not a scrap hat, but you can see how it would be pretty easy to apply the same overall design and whatever to a scrap hat. You know, if you're newer to sewing, I think this is a good starter project. It can be pretty rewarding, and if you mess up, it's not the end of the deal, because it doesn't take a whole lot of fabric, but it does still require all the same skills as a bigger project. So good little sample. And yeah, you know, if you need a skull cap for under a helmet, this is a really good fit for that. Just something really low profile if you know, just want a hat that you can just kind of stick in your pocket when you're backcountry touring. Good multi-use piece. Done in 8 minutes and 41 seconds. Whether you use it as a Christmas gift or just a way to use up scraps, an overall fun project.